Weather and life both change quickly. Do you have a farm estate plan? You need to learn the best option to help your family avoid or minimize federal estate taxes and other costs.
I'm Brad Swenson, President of Swenson Investments in Commodities. We work confidentially with farmers, ranchers, and advisors to help develop the best farm estate plan.
During our Farm Basics time today, we wanted to talk a little about how farmers market their grain. Now, obviously, if you're a farmer, you know all about this. But if you're a non-farmer, we wanted to talk just a little bit about selling crop ahead, putting grain in the bin and selling it later, and what some of the different options are for farmers, and why they pick the different options.
Well, if we're talking about commodity type grains like corn, soybeans, wheat, no specialty trait in them. Farmers can sell them in a multitude of places, and they're going to choose from local elevators, perhaps end users like an ethanol plant or a livestock feeder. There's so many places that guys can go because their crop is seen as it's the same as the guys down the road. So they're valued the same. There's set prices that everybody could get that same price if they wanted. When we talk about specialty grains, the rules change a lot because then the quality of that grain or a specific trait that may be in that grain comes into play.
So one of the big things that comes up quite often is if you're running, let's say, a normal business, you want to know where your costs are at and what you're going to sell the product for. What happens a lot on the farm is the farmer already locks his costs in the summer before he ends up planting that crop. So in other words, he figures out what the rent is going to be on certain pieces of land. He starts buying his fertilizer, maybe his seed, his herbicides, all those things. He'll buy those in the fall. He's already got the equipment on the farm from probably years past. So a lot of these costs are already figured out way in advance. The problem is, how is the farmer going to sell that crop going forward? Can he actually sell the crop that early? He won't even produce the crop for over a year yet. Can he sell it that far in advance?
Well, sure, a farmer can find markets to sell his crop ahead, but wow, you're taking a risk. You think about it, how much corn am I going to get off an acre right now? I may get 200 bushels, we may have some bad weather, I may only get 100. So there's a certain level that a farmer is comfortable in selling. If he's in 200 bushel corn country, maybe he says, you know, my crop insurance will cover the first 120 bushels. So I'm comfortable selling 120 bushels ahead, but that last 80 bushels, I'm going to have to wait till after harvest. And really for a farmer, that helps him spread his risk out. He says, you know, I'm going to sell part of my crop up front, I'm going to sell part of my crop later on, and that way if the price moves up or down, at least I'm going to get an average price across my acres.
The other thing that a farmer can certainly do, rather than finding local markets, so in other words, contracting with, let's say, a local elevator to deliver grain a year, year and a half, 2 years in advance, what many farmers will do is they will use the Chicago Board of Trade. And that's where basically on a piece of paper, they're deciding, yep, I'm going to sell 5,000 bushels and actually deliver 5,000 bushels. But before they ever deliver it, then they buy that contract back. And so then they just get the difference of if the price went up or if the price went down. The reason why farmers will do this, though, is it allows them to hedge. In other words, let's say that corn is trading for $6 on the Board of Trade, and the local elevator at the time is paying $5. Okay, well, let's say that the market goes up to $7. Well, it's going to cost the farmer $1 in effect because he's sold it at $6, he's going to buy it back at $7, but in the meantime, the local elevator is going to go up $1 too, so that $1 is really a wash.
The other strategy that farmers employ is they'll build grain bins or grain storage areas on their farm, so they can store a lot of that crop. Then they can just sell it throughout the year as they need cash or as the price bounces up and down. When the price bounces up to a level where they can profitably sell some, they'll sell some grain and then they'll wait for the next time that the market bounces.
And the big reason why farmers want to build grain bins is because all the grain elevators get their huge demand at harvest time, so they basically pay less. On average, in our area, it's probably 25 to 50 cents less that a farmer's going to get if he sells it right in harvest time versus selling it, let's say, a few months later when the elevator's not quite so busy.
But the other thing about being busy is the farmer may have to wait for 2 or 3 hours in line at the elevator to dump that grain. So by being able to haul it home and dump it in his own grain bins, obviously there's no line at home, so you can just dump it and get right back in the field and harvest some more.
One last thing I guess I wanted to point out is for many farmers, in fact, the average farmer probably has $1 million invested on his farm, and many farmers have millions of dollars invested on their farm, and they can't really hedge everything with their crop. In other words, they have to buy everything to put that crop in. Well, you can't sell 100% of what you think you're going to produce because you don't know exactly what you're going to produce. It's not a factory where we know for sure we're going to get X number of bushels back out every fall. It depends so much on Mother Nature. So there is a tremendous amount of risk. And as all the costs go up for farmers, there's more risk than ever before.
Well, farming certainly gets more risky if you let weeds like our weed of the week take over. We'll show you how to get this tough weed under control later in the show.